Hello and welcome to I'll Knit If I Want To. I'm Andrea Maury of Andrea Renee Knits, and I forgot to open up my little question holder. This is a little weekly podcast where I do my best to answer some of your questions, usually about knitting, sometimes a little about spinning, and hopefully your questions are going to come up any minute. Got it. All right. In the meantime, today I am just chock full of knits. I am wearing my Gib raglan, named after my grandpa. And man, another week of digging out a sweater I hadn't worn in a couple months and just feeling like I really love this sweater. And what a great feeling. What a great way to start the day with a sweater you love. So with that, I am wearing my newly released Traveler shawl. And I thought it would be fun. Do y'all remember, for those of you who've been around for a while, how I used to show how to wear a shawl every week? I totally forgot about that part of this that we used to do. So I thought it would be fun to show you how I like to style these shawls because they're a little different. They're asymmetrical, and I have found little ways to wear them that I just think make them a little more jaunty and a little more fun. So the one I'm wearing is the smaller size. So this is sample A, or size 1 in the pattern. And then behind me, look at me, all set up with a mannequin. I wonder if I can get it to focus on it. There we go. This is size 2, which is the larger size. And that is over my weekender crew there, knit up in Brooklyn Tweed Dapple. And I'm also wearing a Harlow hat, so I'm just jam-packed over here. And now my hands are nice and lotioned. I got my water. I actually have so much stuff around me right now that it's kind of pure chaos. I have 3 knits drying on the floor over here. I've got fiber everywhere. It's a little chaotic in here today. But let's go ahead and get to some questions and some show and tell and see how far we get. Also, how cute is this? I got a new Turkish spindle this week. And look at this. Can you see this cute little, look at this cute little sheep. It came in my package. I was so tickled. It's so cute. So now it gets to sit on my desk. I should show you my spindle while I'm at it. Where'd you go? Uh-oh, I lost my little sheep. Oh, there it is. I got this beautiful Turkish spindle from Snyder Spindles. And I'm very excited to spin on it. Might get that one going today. I really like the heft of the cross arms. I have another Turkish spindle that I really like, but its cross arms are quite thin and a little bit fragile. So I wanted something that felt sturdier. Anyways, let's focus, shall we? Let's answer some questions. So, this first one hit home for me because I had something similar happen. All right, a few days ago, I washed some socks in the washing machine, but accidentally used the wrong cycle. Most of them slightly felted, but are still good enough, except for a pair of newly finished 3-color colorwork socks. Oh, it hurts. That I can no longer fit over my heel. Is there anything I can do, or is this pair doomed and I just have to find a friend with a smaller foot size and give them the socks? So I do not wash my socks in the washing machine because I just don't trust it. And I'm always washing woolens. It seems like at least once a week I got a tub full of something. So I just throw my socks in there whenever I'm about to hand wash some knits. But this past week, apparently I took off a pair of pants and some hand knit socks, you know, like when you're about to get in the shower and you just take everything off in one go. And I must have forgotten that I was wearing hand knit socks or didn't pull them out of the pants ends before I chucked them in the laundry. And so they got washed and I went to go put them on this week. And I was like, whoa, these are little. Thankfully, they now fit my daughter and they look so cute on her sweet little feet. They were my Curio socks. They were my hand spun curio socks from our fall knit along challenge. I think that was 3 years ago. So anyways, I'm so happy that they fit her, and they actually are so cute on her feet that I'm fine with it. But I'm just to say, I commiserate with you. I am so sorry that this had to happen to a pair of colorwork socks that use 3 colors. Unfortunately, there's not really a way to undo felting. So all those fibers, they're locked around each other. You know, you could try getting them wet and stretching them gently and seeing if you could get any of that felting to loosen, but you might want to go the same route I did and rehome them if you can find somebody that they fit. Maybe somebody here, maybe another listener, viewer, might have a tip for what to do, but outside of trying to stretch them a little, I think they're kind of stuck that way. At least that's been my experience, is felting's not really something we can undo. But yeah, I'm so sorry about that. I'm happy that at least that the other socks seem to be manageable. But there you go. You know, I find that even on most yarn labels, that even when they're superwash, a lot of them still recommend hand washing, because there is, to a degree, some felting that can still happen even when it's superwashed yarn. I know a lot of people here do wash their superwash socks in the washer and don't have any issues, but you can always hand wash them if you're worried about it. All right, next question. You mentioned that you spun 3 braids of fiber together. How did you do that? Like, how did you split the roving? Was it multicolored roving? Did you spin 3 singles and then ply it? Or is it 2-ply? We need the details. So for both of these shawls, I knit them out of my hand spun, and I did a combo spin for both of these. I love a combo spin. It is one of my favorite things to do in spinning because of so many reasons. A, it's really fun. B, I feel like most of the time it just looks so good. It just works. And 3, I think it is a great way to extend yardage. So some of us, myself included, belong to a fiber club. Fiber club is where a fiber dyer, you can sign up and you don't know what you're gonna get, and they send you maybe like 1 braid a month that they dye. And so it's always a surprise. And if you find a dyer you love, it tends to be a very fun, happy surprise. So the thing with that is it leaves us with quite a few single braids. And what do you do with them? And yardage can be limited if you only have 1 braid. So what I found is that I could match up 2 to 3 braids, and now I've extended my yardage by spinning them all as 1 yarn, which is delightful and so fun. So I have a few combo spins to show you, but I'll also tell you how I go about it. Generally speaking, most of mine are just standard plies. So I'm not doing any kind of fractal business in there. Usually I find 2 to 3 braids that I think look nice together. Usually they share at least 1 color. That's kind of where I start, which is something that I do for my non-spinners out there that are like, oh no, she's gonna get into her spin chat again. This applies to picking colors for yarn as well. I've said it before, I'll say it again. The way that I love to begin a lot of times is I'll take a skein of yarn and I'll look at what colors are present in that yarn, whether it's a variegated yarn such as this one, or a speckled yarn. This is fiber, but we're going to pretend it's yarn, or fiber, whatever you're here for. But I'll look at those speckles. Focus on this. There we go. I'll focus on the speckles and be like, okay, what do I see present in here that I could bring? Like, even look at, I didn't even mean to do this, and these can work. Do you see how this has yellow and then this blue that we see apparent in my skein here? So those are the things I start off with when I'm like, what would I like to pair with this? That's where I always start when it comes to multicolored yarns and fibers. So back to spinning. Then then go to spin it. I can do a few things. I might take that braid and just spin it end to end, not do anything to it. And I might do that for 3 braids, each on their own bobbin, and then I just ply them together. You can use whatever draft you like, whatever draft you feel like fits that fiber. For both of these shawls, I just happened to do, I believe it was a short forward, might have been a short backward, kind of gets you to the same place. I did do a worsted draft, and I don't remember if I stripped down the fiber at all, but you could absolutely just go end to end. Basically, what is going to impact my decision there is what I want to happen with the color repeats. So when we look at a braid, there's all these colors going throughout, and it might not have this many colors. It might be more kind of like this one, which has kind of like 3 main color areas. So if I want to keep long stretches of color for longer transitions, then I might just spin it end to end. If I want a more heathered look with shorter colors, kind of like this hat, I held it with alpaca so you can't see, but you see how there's just like little tiny sections of color repeats? It's not as strong as maybe this hat. So then I might split the fiber vertically into thinner strips, which sometimes I like to do just because it makes for easier spinning. I don't always love spinning across an entire braid all the way from end to end. It's just a lot of fiber to manage in my hand, and sometimes I prefer the thinner strips. So it kind of depends on my mood, but also what I'm going for visually. I believe that for my shawls, I did just go end to end. So now let's talk about picking a couple colorways to create the combo spin. Again, this can apply to yarn when you are picking colors. So what we're looking for. So I just grabbed a handful of braids out of my stash. I got these from Hello Chickadee. Look at how pretty they are. I have one more to add. Okay. Oh, they're so pretty. The light is just real nice right now in here. All right, so we have quite an array here, and I would pick about 3 of these to use. So what I want to, you can see that all of these have something in common. That's why I snagged them. Maybe not all of them together, but within the group. So I see this pink here reflected here. I see this teal here and in here. I see this orange is also reflected in here, along with like the browns. So you can see that they play with each other. And what I would do, and this is exactly how I started for like Find Your Fade when I was knitting that using yarn, and I was looking at the commonalities, and then I start just holding them up and being like, okay, but what one feels the best to me when I hold them up? So I have this one with purples and pinks that would go really well with my pink heavy braid. Let's hold them side by side. So now if I'm looking for one more to go with them, these two are quite similar to each other, which can be a great thing. It has some lighter colors in there. These actually are quite fun. I love that this would bring a surprise element to it, but maybe I want to tone it down. I could bring this guy in. This would be really lovely and really similar to what I did in one of these other combo spins. So they're all different, but not glaringly different. So they do this really nice complementing. So this is really my biggest oddball in the bunch because of this, what would you call that? Like a, ooh, periwinkle, right? Oh, I love when my words come to me. Okay, so this one kind of has this periwinkle, which makes it stand out more to me. I think it goes quite nicely with this one, which also has some of that periwinkle. So I could start here and I could go, ooh, I want to elevate this with the pink, but there is something about these two next to each other that kind of gives me like a, I don't know. So I could also bring in this one, which does share the oranges. Again, this to me, so this guy and this guy are kind of like my elevators, where if I didn't want it to just be very cohesive, going the safe route of, let's say, these three, I could choose to elevate them with either this one, it's like a juggling, either this one or this one. So anyways, that's how I play with picking my colors. I think I do want to actually start a new combo spin because, you know, once you knit with your hand spun or with anything, it gets you excited to do it again, right? So I kind of think this is what I'm feeling at the moment, is maybe this neutral one. I don't know. We'll have to play. We'll keep playing. But yeah, that's what I do. And then I just ply all three of those strands together. I also, here's another combo spin I did. It is in a cake already because after I finished it, I loved it so much that I immediately caked it up to use it and then decided the project that I was going to use it for wasn't worthy, because this is one of my favorite spins I've ever done. This is a 2-ply. And for this one, I actually used a braid and a bat. So that's really fun. Again, I did it to stretch the yardage. I had this beautiful bat from Artifacts of Appreciation. I have shown this on here before. It is time to use it. And I loved it so much and I wanted to stretch what I could get out of it. So then I paired it with a braid from Port Fiber called Xanadu, which is one of my all-time favorite colorways from them. It's got these oranges and blues, a little bit of green. So anyways, that's a 2-ply. So sky's the limit. Play around with them and just see what happens. Don't be afraid to experiment. Okay. Did I answer all the questions? So I didn't necessarily split the roving, but you can if you want. And it was multicolored. And I did spin 3 singles and then turn it into a 3-ply yarn. You could absolutely do a 2-ply or a 4-ply, whatever you want. All right, let's keep talking about the Traveler shell. So when I first saw it, I immediately wanted to cast it on with one of my hand spun, but I quickly realized it's not the right gauge. I have 860 yards for 150 grams, so it is a lightweight fingering to lace. Yeah, that is, I would say, a lace. Do you think it could work if I hold it double with mohair or a suri, or would it still be too light? I think that's such a great idea. The nice thing about fuzzy yarns is they generally bloom a lot. So if you are trying to kind of push your gauge, a fluffy fuzzy yarn is a great way to go because it will help puff and fill in the gaps. This is my hand spun held with a strand of suri alpaca. I actually wore it today for this question so you can see it. So yes, absolutely you can do that and it will help it fill it up. I would then recommend doing size 1, which would be the sport weight shawl, unless you want to throw more strands of other yarns in there. But that calls for 850 yards of a sport weight. So I think that if you already have 860 of your hand spun and you can add in 1 more strand of fluff to get you to gauge, then I think it'll be great. I think too, once you see how I wear the smaller size, it'll be okay even if yours turns out a little bit smaller than mine with the way I secure it. The other thing about this shawl is this is, if you couldn't tell by the name, is the same stitch pattern as the Traveler hoodie and the Traveler shell. And it really likes to open up. So depending on how hard you block your shawl when you're finished, you can really play with size just in the blocking alone. I could get it to stretch. I could get the row gauge to change by up to 10 rows per inch, depending on how hard I blocked it. So keep that in mind too. All right. Next question. So impressed that you walk and knit that I have started doing the same. Yay! My question though is not about walking and knitting. Now that I scan a little further. What material have you used for the pinup board on the wall behind you? I think it is important for the design process to have things out to look at for future projects as your brain works on them while we're doing other things, and it helps the morphing process into an idea or project. I absolutely agree. I love to have things out in front of me. Otherwise, I think it's easy to forget them. I also think that your subconscious works away, like you were saying, even when we're distracted by other things. So the funny thing is, that is not a pinup board. That's my wall. And I am probably a little irresponsible, and I just shove pins right in my wall. So yeah, that's just a wall that I shove little push pins into, which I may regret later, but you know, it's what I've done. I do actually have a big swatch board around the corner that is just, it kind of looks like burlap covers it, kind of. It's not nearly that coarse, but that's kind of what it reminds me of. And it's just a big one, and I don't remember where I got it from, but I just searched online for a large board because I knew I needed a big one. But unfortunately, it was years ago. I don't remember where I got it, but you can definitely find them online. All right. I have a question about blocking. I have a question about blocking and yarn content. I knitted a sweater out of Nightshades by Harrisville Designs, which is a cornmeal and wool blend. The color is gorgeous and it knitted up pretty well, but the fabric created is pretty rough. I haven't blocked it yet, as I haven't worked with this particular blend before, and wonder if I should use cold water, warm water, steam. There are only a handful of reviews of this yarn on Ravelry, and a few mention that the yarn is very soft, so I'm very confused, but hoping that the yarn will soften after a proper blocking. What would you suggest? So I have used Nightshades by Harrisville. I love that yarn. I will say it is a woolly yarn. It's definitely not, depending on what you're used to using. So there are yarns out there that we think of as very soft, such as a merino or an MCN, which is a merino cashmere nylon, that tend to be very drapey and very soft. This does not fall into that category. This is a woolen spun yarn that feels more akin to like a woolly farm yarn, kind of similar to what I'm wearing right now. This sweater is knit up in Brooklyn tweed and Bew, and has kind of a similar feel to Nightshades. So, but I do find I can wear Nightshades next to my skin. I think that I have a higher tolerance for wool against the skin than maybe the average person. I know I definitely don't have sensitive skin when it comes to wool. So I don't know if I'm the best gauge of how soft some yarns are. And that is what I would be curious about when you've seen other people say, oh, it's so soft. They might just love woolly kind of farm yarns and are used to something with a little toothiness to it. So their definition of soft could be very different than yours. For blocking, I also will say, you don't mention the stitch pattern or anything that you worked with, but I would be a little curious about gauge and stitch pattern, because before blocking, let's say you did a lot of cables or you knit at a tight gauge, then that fabric might feel a little stiffer and not quite so soft, just because of the tension it's under, which definitely could relax with blocking, especially cables. So as far as blocking it, my personal preference would be to block it in hot water. I will say that yarn is not superwash. It 100% has the ability to felt. So you want to be careful, only proceed, you know, at your own risk. But the way that I have handled that yarn is I let my tap go to hot. I fill up my tub, I add a little wool wash, and I just very carefully submerge my knit in there. You definitely don't want to be squeezing it or rough handling it in there at all. Just let it, you know, usually I use a hand or like a finger to just like gently submerge it under the water. And then I don't touch it again until that water's cool to the touch. And what I find that hot water does, especially on a yarn like that, is it really helps get you a great bloom on the yarn so that once it's dry, it puffs up really beautifully. And I do think it helps soften the yarn. So that would be my recommendation. I also personally like to use a wool wash that has some lanolin in it because that is also gonna help the softness. So yeah, that's what I would do. Again, if you do choose to use hot water, just be careful. Agitation and hot water does not a woolen friend make unless you are trying to felt. So just be cautious there, but otherwise that's what I would do. If anybody else has used that yarn and found a way of blocking it that they really enjoyed, please feel free to share in the comments below. But I have used it a few times and that's what I like to do with it. And it does get more drape and softness after blocking compared to when you've just knit with it. All right, how about a little show and tell before we finish up today? Oh yes, and I said I would show how I put these shells on. So you will notice that if I turn, where is it? You'll actually see I have this boop in a little, I tie it. I love how it looks. I just think it's so cute. And it also helps the smaller size of the shawl. I mean, look, so cute. I feel like it helps the smaller size of the shawl stay on. It's a great way to secure it. And then you just know it's not going anywhere. So here's what I do. And now you can really see the gib. This is a texture I've used in a lot of my knits. It's one of my all-time favorite knit textures. It's just this simple little knit purl stitch and then, you know, fun cables, because if you have to do a raglan, why not adorn it? All right, so for this shawl, you can see that it is a symmetrical, which I love. I love how it works with the stitch pattern to have these two different directions happening. But you are going to have one triangle that has a longer wingspan than the other triangle. So I like to start with the long one and I throw that over my shoulder. And then I just wrap the remaining around. And then I play with how I want my triangle to lay. I always prefer for shawls to be a little off-centered, like that. So now I take my longer end and I bring it up to my shoulder and I secure my little ends, boop. And that's it. And you could, I think it's cute and jaunty to have it, where's my ends so I can see them, to have it showing, but you could also cover it up like that if you don't want it to show. And I love that it also helps give a little oomph. I like a little oomph because when you're outside and you're cold, I mean, look at those colors. They're just so pretty. But when you're walking outside and it's cold, you want a little shelter from the wind, right? So I like a little oomph in things that I'm wrapping around me to stay cozy. So that is the size 1. Now let's check out size 2. So again, so let's say you want to start with the short side. You can. But what I find then is we're kind of, well, no, let's do it. Why not? What I was gonna say is that then you kind of overwrap the top, but you could always just bring it under, especially if you like that oomph. See, that's kind of landing in the middle though. And I feel like that's because I started on that side. Although I do love how much you get to see the horizontal with the way that just wrapped around. And by horizontal, this is vertical. Anyways, okay, where's my ends? Let's try it again. Okay, so personally, I'm a long end first kind of person. So I'm going to wrap that long end around me. And then I'm going to take the short end. And this one, because it has a longer wingspan, you could just kind of do the traditional let the tails hang down. You know, and just, you could also do the same trick as the first, and you could tie these in a knot, or you can just take that long tail and just stick it underneath, and you can let this guy hang down. All right. There we go. So, yeah, that is how I would do it. Off to the side, little corner hanging down to show. The other thing I love about the shawl is I think it's just as beautiful on either side. This side, the ridges are wider as opposed to this side where they're a little thinner. But yeah, that's how I wear the shawl. And then let us look at a little show and tell. Okay, so I have been, sorry, it took me a minute to remember what I want to show you. I have been spinning away on my spindles for the 100-day spinning challenge. And here is my first little skein of spindle spun, hand spun from the fleece that I got at Rhinebeck. And I wish you could feel it. I mean, this feels like it weighs a couple grams. It is so light and airy. I want to knit a little swatch out of this. What's also exciting is I think it turned out so nice, even though this was kind of, I called it a little trash bat that I made because it was out of a part of the fleece that was just so full of yam. I could not get a lot of it out. It was just kind of the dregs that I was like, I'm just gonna throw it on my drum carder and make a bat to practice with. And even that turned out so beautiful, which has me so excited to keep spinning up the rest of it. And then here is, I think I showed you, I know I posted on Instagram. Oh, this little guy is losing some of its cup. So I took a bat from Mork Fiber that I got at Sacred Sheep, and I made it into Rolex. Here's one of them. And I've been spinning that. Ooh, don't drop your spindles. I've been spinning that onto some spindles. So I'm working away on that one. And then I had gotten one other art bat from Mork Made Fiber. And so I just made those into Rolex yesterday because I've been having so much fun spinning them up that I decided I'm just gonna keep going. So I'm working on those. I am continuing on, this is going to be a combo spin, speaking of, with Rolex from Hikari Handmade. And I have 2 different colors. I also have a 3rd color that I may introduce. I'm trying to decide because it's a little different than these 2. But I am still plugging away on those and I can't wait to ply them. After plying this yesterday, and I plied it on my drop spindle, so it's fully spindle spun. Now I'm excited to try out, see how all my other yarns are coming along because I'm so new at spindle spinning that it's just kind of like, wonder what this finished yarn will be like. Fingers crossed. So anyways, there is some show and tell for you. And I guess that's it. I guess that's us this week. So I hope that you are having a great week and I hope to see you back here next week. Let me know if you are joining in on the 100 days of spindle spinning. Please let me know how it's going. I would love to hear all about it in the comments below. Are you gonna knit the traveler shawl again to It is a fantastic shawl for so many different kinds of yarns. You do not have to be a hand spinner. You can absolutely stash dive. It would be so good for fading. I really want somebody to do a faded one. It is beautiful in neutrals. There are a few examples. Ritual Dyes knit one up in Elder in their colorway Chromite, which is one of my all-time favorite colorways. It's kind of a gray blue, and it's so squishy and beautiful neutral shawl. The thing I love about it when it's in one color, the Farmer's Daughter Fibers also did one in Sue Copy, and Odang held double in this beautiful red. And it just shows off the really, really interesting texture of those garter ridges. And I think sometimes we underestimate the beauty of that. Like, I love how those angles and everything look together. It's just really beautiful. So it can be such a classic wardrobe staple done in just a neutral. La Bien-Aimée did a beautiful color blocked version, which was so fun. They held two colors together, not two colors, they held two yarns together throughout the shawl, but then for one corner they used two different colors to do this little color blocking fun pink tip on one of their triangles that turned out so great. And then if you really do love the hand spun look, but you're not a hand spinner or you don't want to spin the yarn, Spin Cycle Yarns is obviously a go-to for that slow color shifting. If you want it to have a similar look to what I've done here, like their Dream State is so perfect. It would look so similar to what I've done here for the size 2, and obviously dyed in the wool for size 1 would be great. But don't be afraid to dig into your stash, use up odds and ends. My dream for this shawl is that it's one that people will be playful with and do all different kinds of combinations. And I think once you've tried it out at the sizes I've listed, I also think you can really play with the gauge and do different size shawls that suit you and your wardrobe or what you want to wear the shawl for. So anyways, I hope that you will check out the shawl and enjoy it as much as I have. I already want to cast on another because it was so much fun. So I think that is everything. I hope that you have a great weekend. Maybe you'll sneak in some making of your own this weekend, and I hope to see you back here next week. Bye, everybody.